The LibreVerse is the ecosystem of technologies that we put together in order to advance our goals, which I'll also be talking about. This is more of an overview behind it rather than a going into specifics. We'll go into specifics and many of the issues of what we'll be talking about today, or many of the topics. But I'm going to try to keep this brief. So if I were teaching a class, and I really want my students to write down something, I would really emphasize to write down something. And this is what I'm doing with you guys, in that if you had to write down anything, any URL here, it's going to be this URL right here. So launchpad.libretext.org. And this right here is the map to the LibreVerse. You can access the Launchpad directly via launchpad.libretext.org. Anytime that you see a rocket ship, any parts of the LibreText infrastructures, if you click on it, it will open up the Launchpad. So it's a map that is useful in order to take a look at. This is what it looks like. It's separated into two parts. One is the applications and services that we have, and we have up here 7 entries that we'll be talking about in turn. And then we have 16 libraries down below that hosts our textbooks. So these are the hubs, or this is the hub of the LibreVerse, and these are ancillary technologies in order to advance the aspects behind here. And this could be daunting in order to be exposed to the first time, because the LibreText development team is not focusing on a very specific aspect of promotion of OER, or open education, but a broad scope of things. And that requires a range of different technologies. So before jumping into that, I want to at least emphasize who I am for those of you that have not had any direct experience with me. And then later on, I'll be introducing the other members of our team. So I'm a professor of chemistry at the University of California, Davis. I just celebrated my 19th year anniversary last week. I've been there since 2005. My research focuses on ultrafast laser spectroscopies in photoactive biological systems and photoactive man-made systems. Basically, I shoot short laser pulses into proteins, I watch them scream, and from that screaming, I get information about how the proteins operate. I'm the founder and director of the LibreText project. This was established several years after I got to UC Davis. It's 16 years old, so in the scope of OER projects out there, we're fairly mature. I'm the founder of the UC Davis Aggie Open, which is the OER program on my campus. I'm an adopter of OER. I'm an adapter of OER. I'm a creator of OER and a curator of OER. And I emphasize that because I personally am a practitioner of OER. So not only do I walk the walk, or at least talk the talk, I walk the walk. I have not used a commercial product in my classroom for the last decade. And most of the development team are also practitioners. And it really gives us a specific focus in the way that we actually pursue things, which sometimes, in many cases, complements other approaches. For example, a librarian or administrator or an external vendor-based approach for these things. And it's useful in order to emphasize that we're very much concerned with the practical applications of OER. So what do I do what I do? I do what I do because of this Denny's restaurant, which is in Linwood, Washington, which is north of Seattle. And this truck, which was my father's truck. For a significant part of my childhood, I lived in this truck behind this Denny's restaurant. So I was homeless. That came with other issues, including food insecurity, and other aspects that are not really worth discussing, other than emphasizing that what got me out of this level of poverty was essentially affordable education. And that was at the K-12 level, that was at a community college, that was at University of Washington, a public R1 institution. One of my graduate schools was UC Berkeley. I did go to University of Chicago to start with. I did a postdoc at a public university in Europe, at the Free University of Amsterdam. And came back, and now I'm in a public institution. So I believe strongly in affordable education, but it's clear to anyone that's even remotely paying attention, education is becoming more difficult to be affordable. You're no longer able to work your way through college. You need a significant amount of support, whether that's support from your family or support from state or federal institutions, but nonetheless, things are changing. And it was difficult for me to be on the other side, be an instructor, and watch the students fight with affordability and see the consequences associated with them unable to afford tuition or the resources that were necessary in order to be able to be successful in the classroom. So to me, there are lots of issues that need to be addressed in education. The equity gap is one of the bigger issues that I think that we would like to address. And it's important in order to emphasize some of the benefits that open educational resources provide. Now, this whole week, we're going to be focusing on the practical applications of OER, the logistics in order to build, distribute, identify OER and getting it out there. But there are many other conversations around the benefits associated with OER. And this is the only slide that I'm going to be discussing that, which is essentially arguing that if you want to address equity gaps, addressing the economic gap is one of the easiest ways in order to address that, at least from a starting perspective. By removing the barrier for students to be able to access resources that are important for their success in the classroom, it helps to reduce a fundamental barrier for addressing populations that have a typically poor representation in our education system. That helps in several different ways. One is it provides the opportunity for students to use funds for more important things like housing or food or daycare or other issues that are important for the students in order to be successful. From a faculty perspective, it allows us the opportunity in order to customize the resources, which is one of the major benefits associated with OER. And whenever we're talking about OER, should always be a topic of discussion, not just how OER reduces the financial barrier. And that is being able to make OER, make your resources customized for the needs of your campus, the needs of your department, the needs of the faculty in the classroom in order to be able to address, in order to be able to pursue their educational and curriculum requirements. It also gives us the ability in order to customize the resources in order to engage students better. That engagement may be taking the form of enhanced interactivities, enhanced technology, may take the form of addressing the technologies or addressing the material toward the student's identity. Whether that identity happens to be a cultural, racial, gender, or just location. And OER provides us with that opportunity. So back to the logistics of things. So this is the mission statement that I oftentimes like to give when I give these presentations out here. We're implementing a community-built platform for the construction, curation, adoption, and adaption of OER that's comprehensive and can be curated at multiple levels. Each of these words that are bolded are particularly important in terms of dictating our big picture. Each of the 4 words that are in the parentheses are particularly important in terms of dictating the practical applications in terms of pursuing those goals. So the LibreText is a community-built platform. It's built predominantly by funds of the federal government and the state of California. And it's meant not as a vanity project, but it's meant as a project in order to advance OER that's out there. OER is the primary focus of what we're doing, so we're not interested in the money aspect that comes with publishing. I don't want to define OER because that can take a long time because there's still some contention about certain aspects behind that. For the sake of this conversation, I want to say OER is freely available for students in order to obtain and freely available for faculty in order to customize. There are many other aspects associated with OER again, but that's the simplified description for this conversation. Lastly, it's comprehensive, or our approach is to be comprehensive. So while the LibreText project was born out of a precursor project called the ChemWiki, it's expanded into many other fields. In fact, all academic fields we have an interest in order to be able to advance. that's out there. So we follow a no gap left behind policy. So we like to fill in those gaps, or we like to find other people who've created OER and use that in order to fill in the gaps. Lastly, we follow a no tech left behind policy, which means as emerging technologies become available, we integrate them into the LibreVerse such that faculty can use them constructively in order to advance the goals that they have and the goals that we have for our efforts. And curation means that we want to create what I refer to as a curatatory, a dynamic repository that's constantly being updated in order to be able to advance this. Because publishing, at least in academia, shouldn't stop at the point of the book. We all recognize that there's a constant circle. The wheel is always turning in what we're doing here, and the buck never stops. So we want to be able to build an infrastructure that is constantly updating. You can think of Wikipedia as an example in order to do that, that constantly is able to address these issues. People come in order to advance it, in order to keep things current and fresh. This is far beyond a simple referatory of links to outside OER infrastructure, or a simple repository like a pile of PDFs, for example, that are static or dead within the parlance that I've actually used before. So curatory is the term that I use to describe what we're creating. No one else in the community uses that term. So if you use it, some people might look at you kind of weird. So what are we trying to do in a nutshell? Well, we're trying to break the commercial publishers' golden handcuffs that they put on faculty. So commercial publishers have recognized a long time ago that in order to get themselves into the classroom and preserve their position in the classroom in order to be able to make and even exploit students, they need to be able to provide a wealth of resources. They need to be able to provide homework. They need to provide textbooks, ancillary materials, interactives, PowerPoints. And in order to extricate them from the classroom, we need to provide homework, textbooks, ancillary materials, interactives, the full scope that's out there. And again, our goal is to extricate them from the classroom. So that's why the LibreVerse is actually multifaceted with different technologies to address different requirements in order to be able to advance what we're doing here. So if you're unfamiliar with us, we are the most popular OER platform on the internet today, or at least in terms of textbooks. We deliver at the peak of the week about 1 million pages per day. We've delivered 1.3 billion pages since we started in 2008, with an exponential or near exponential growth in terms of monthly page views and our accumulated page views. We've collected somewhere in the order of 1 million pages of OER content. 75% of those pages are in English. 100,000 pages are in Spanish, 100,000 pages are Ukrainian, and we have a hodgepodge of other languages that are out there, and that's part of our global scope. We have in our homework infrastructure about 250,000 questions, and we have somewhere in the order of 300 books or collections, but we have a lot of our OER content that's outside of a book that are in little parts or little repositories on our platform, for example, our laboratories or interactives or other components that are separate from our textbook. So we deliver somewhere in the order of 10 millennia of confirmed reading out there. So we operate at an enterprise level that requires a bit of technology in order to address it. So during this week, we're going to be introducing a handful of terms that are out there. I wanted to be able to define them now for you so they don't get confused, so they don't confuse you as we actually move forward. So LibreText is the brand name that we use to describe the entire effort, the project, the team, the company. The LibreVerse is the practical manifestation of our effort. That's this interconnected ecosystem that you can access via that launchpad that I showed before. Again, the goal is to extricate the commercial publishers from the classroom and promote open for learners. LibreNet, which we'll mention from time to time, is the consortium that we've established of campuses, systems, or states that join for maximal use of the LibreVerse. This is our sustainability model. in order to ensure that what we have created doesn't disappear on people, because it would have a detrimental impact for many, many people if we were actually to collapse. And then we used to have various terms that we put Libre in front of them. For example, Libre Studio or Libre Commons. I got very excited with Libre until my team decided they wanted to do an intervention and tell me I needed to chill with the Libre term. So you'll still see that from time to time in different spots where we're trying to reduce the word Libre so people don't get confused or with all the Libres that are out there. So what is the LibreVerse? So the LibreVerse has three primary focuses. One is as a construction platform, one is as a dissemination platform, and one as a learning platform. So it provides an infrastructure to build the OER, whether it's questions, whether it's ancillary materials, whether it's interactives, whether it's textbooks. And again, we distribute the content. There is no better infrastructure for distributing OER on the internet today, largely because of the massive traffic that we have accumulated over the last few years. And then because we're in academia, we're interested in ensuring that it's not just publishing that matters, but it's learning that matters. So we're constantly tweaking and updating our infrastructure in order to facilitate better user experience and to identify if students are truly learning from the material and provide actionable information to the instructors, to the authors, to the adopters in order to ensure that what we are doing is actually achieving the goals that we want to be able to do. So for the remainder of this introduction, I want to go through the different parts of the LibreVerse that you can access on the Launchpad. Again, the Launchpad looks just like this. And we'll go through it in the steps. So for the first one, I want to talk about the libraries. So we have 16 independently operating libraries. They are wikis. We chose the wiki technology because it was the best technology for large-scale collaborative construction efforts when we started 16 years ago. It is the best technology for large-scale collaborative construction efforts now. Again, think about how Wikipedia operates, and that is how we operate to some level in terms of how we're with certain limitations and issues associated with maintaining fidelity and such like that. So the reason that the LibreVerse exists, at least specifically the libraries exist, is because the OER landscape is fragmented. So anyone who's been exposed to or is new to OER out there, one of the first things that you notice is that you could find OER in a wide variety of places. Yeah. Or you can find links to OER in a wide variety of places. For example, the Open Textbook Library, OER Commons, OpenStax, Merlot, OpenSUNY, Galileo, OpenOregon, NOVA, BC Campus, Ontario, Alberta, Hawaii, Saylor, California State University System, Oregon State University. I made this slide up 6 years ago, 7 years ago. It's still applicable now. In fact, it's even more fragmented. You find content all over the place, including even on individual faculty's computers. And it makes it difficult in order to be able to find the content out there. So there have been the growth of lots of search engines or the growth of OER librarians with training in order to be able to find content and distribute and identify content that's useful for individual faculty's needs. This is a fragmented infrastructure, and it has lots of detrimental impacts. One is discoverability, but the other one is progress and development of the OER corpus or commons. If you have content distributed in a variety of places, people update them in different spots, and it makes it difficult in order to be able to collect those updates into a central infrastructure so that people can benefit collectively. And our approach in order to address that is to follow a centralized approach and capitalizing on the O in OER and taking OER and integrating it into a single repository that you're able to find and search effectively. And that basically means that we're trying to build a bigger bucket of Legos such that instructors are able to come in and take the individual parts of the OER that we host, these million pages of content, and build them into new collections. The process of remixing, capitalizing on what other people have done, capitalizing on the sharing is caring model of OER in order to build something that is new, that addresses exactly that instructor's needs. Now, in the ideal world, that bucket of Legos is so big that the instructor is limited only by his or her imagination. We're not at that stage yet, but we are getting closer toward it every day. Uh, and this centralization provides a mechanism for, again, finding content, making it discoverable. It allows us to standardize the content. So anyone who's ever tried to cut and paste from a PDF, that may be one source of OER in order to bring into another platform, recognizes there's a bit of pain associated with taking things from one platform to another platform. This standardizes it to facilitate faster remixing. So we go through the pain in the harvesting process of digesting and bringing things together and standardizing it so that faculty and remixers don't have to. It facilitates massive interconvertibility. It facilitates the mechanism in order to build collections, aka books, or repositories of content, or other envisioned organizations. It provides maximal flexibility. It also provides maximal curatability because it's centralized. So if you actually have someone who advances or finds a mistake on a specific OER, and their mistake on OER and non-OER resources out there all over the places, we could fix it in a central spot, and then everyone benefits from it, period. No issues right there. And that fragmentation issue is completely removed. This right here is a real tour de force approach for doing so, but it's something we've been committed for doing since the start of our project. Now we have 1 million pages of content. We need to facilitate a mechanism in order to slice and dice that content in order to be able to build new collections. So we introduced about 6 years ago the OER Remixer, which is Remixer for short. This is going to be a topic of discussion, I believe, Wednesday in our schedule. And it's a GUI interface, a graphical user interface, in order to be able to take these 1 million pages of content on the left side and just drag and drop and build your book on the right-hand side. This facilitates organizing of your book. It facilitates changing the page numbers of your book. If you do things properly, it will also manipulate the image numbers, the figure numbers, the table numbers within the book. It's meant in order to facilitate rapid generation of a new resource in order to spit out. And many of you have been exposed to the OER Remixer. It's a relatively simple technology, but it's exceedingly powerful when it's coupled with this massive corpus of content that you're able to tap into. More about that later on. So if you look at any of our libraries, and this is the chemistry library, we have our content distributed generally in 3 categories. We have our central bookshelves. Those are the books that we curate ourselves, that the LibreText team is responsible for curation. It's not the books necessarily that we built, although we do build our own content and we work with partners for building new content. But if someone releases, for example, OpenStack's a new book, we could take it, harvest it, put it in here, curate it, and update it, and then everyone can go to it and capitalize on the utility of it being centralized. The campus bookshelves are the books that individual campuses can use and host for their own resources. Any campus has the ability in order to host up to 5 free books without joining the LibreNet. Afterwards, we ask them to join the LibreNet, but it provides a mechanism to host these things down. We don't curate the content or the books in the campus bookshelves, with the exception of updates for accessibility and standardization and other issues. This provides the opportunity in order to give flexibility for the instructor in order to build what they want to build. But you also have the ability in order to have this stability associated with the central repository of content that's out there. The learning objects is a separate area that we use in order to host content that's typically not connected to a book. For example, you can look at repository laboratories or dry labs or interactives or simulations or things. So it's basically something you can come in and you can look through in order to be able to embed into your book in order to make a more dynamic infrastructure. So there are multiple features that we like to talk about, and I'm not going to be able to talk about many of them during this introduction. The one thing that I'm particularly excited about that we've implemented a few years ago, and we have a few tweaks that we want to put in place this summer, is our auto attribution system. So I mentioned that in the OER landscape, part of the issues that we have is being able to find OER that's out there. One of the other issues that we have is to be able to handle licensing. And we'll be talking about licensing later on, but one of the aspects that's critical for remixing of other people's OER is to provide proper attributions. And that could be sometimes a big issue. An issue in terms of keeping track and making sure that you're doing it properly in compliance and other things. So we've implemented an auto attribution system on our library such that when you copy and paste or you use the remixer to go from one content to another content, we then have the ability in order to keep track of the licensing and the attributions for the content that's being used. So at the bottom of the page, it will actually tell you where the content comes from and have the proper attributions out there in order to ensure you're fully compliant with the requirements of the license that the intellectual property owner put on that content out there. Now, if that doesn't seem very cool to you right now, it will be cool to you in a few days when you start getting more exposed to the licensing aspect associated with OER, which is actually oftentimes quite daunting because it's a pretty complex infrastructure. I will mention this briefly because we'll be reporting this later on this month, as just like most other ed tech communities out there, we are getting involved in AI. We're partnering with Sandbox AQ, which is a spinoff company from Google, in order to introduce a chatbot or a tutor to accompany our textbooks in order to make sure that the resources that we create are engaging and dynamic in order to be able to provide the greatest opportunity for students to learn from those resources. This is going to be released later on this month for nursing as the starting point, but it'll be exposed to other fields in the near future, subject to issues that we need to deal with in terms of sustainability and such. But the key point behind here is that we're able to take a book or a series of books, digest it so that when you ask a question or when a student asks a question to the tutor, it will spit out the responses using the material from the book. So that right there provides a mechanism to reduce hallucinations or mirages, if you're familiar with that, basically giving incorrect responses, which is one of the bigger issues that we have with AI, large language models. It also provides a reference point to where those materials come from in order to be able to provide links to instructors or students in order to look at the raw material that was used in order to generate these responses. And that's necessary for academic purposes, for honesty purposes, but again, this significantly reduces or significantly improves the fidelity and the accuracy of the tutor out there. And we're very excited in order to release this very soon. So. We have a variety of distribution mechanisms for our OER. I mentioned that we have distributed 1.3 billion pages of OER via direct access of our internet. Via online, that is, but we've also been able to demonstrate PDFs. We distribute somewhere in the order, it's about 1.5 million PDFs since we started. We can embed into learning management systems. We can generate print files if you want to go to your local printer. We will have EPUB export. We need to update our EPUB this summer. You can generate physical books. Any book that's compiled on our platform has a mechanism in order to have any end user purchase that book from Lulu Express automatically at and actually below cost available. So this general organic biochemistry book here costs about $12 to $13 for students if they want to have a physical copy. And that's what happens when you're not trying to make a profit off of things, because we're mission over money. We have the ability in order to provide or load Raspberry Pi boxes in order with our library, so you can actually have offline access to the content. This is useful, or at least we felt that this was useful for developing countries, but it was also clear during the pandemic that there were many populations in America that had limited access to high-speed internet, either due to the lack of the infrastructure to tap into it, or to the lack of money in order to be able to access. And this provides a mechanism in order to address this. This will complement our LibreText in the phone, which which will be an application that you'll be able to grab and download these books that are out there. That's the front end. Behind the scenes, in terms of curation, what underlies our curatory aspect is a series of bots or scripts that we use. So this helps to facilitate a better standardization. It helps to facilitate a better compliance with accessibility. Bots, if you're unfamiliar with the term, is essentially a script that will go through page by page and update the script or update the markup language that's associated with that content in order to make things standardized so you're able to mix and match effectively instead of dealing with things in a variety of different formats. Most of these bots are not available for the end user because they're exceedingly powerful. You can think of them as the ability in order to chew up books, although we will release sometime within the next year a limited access to certain aspects of those bots. The two bots that we use the most, one is the accessibility bot or Ali bot. The other one is the Brad bot. The Brad bot goes through pages in order to make things pretty. Standardize it, and we chose it. We called it Brad Bot because it's named after Brad Pitt in order to make things pretty, and he's pretty. So I mentioned accessibility. I don't want to discuss it too much here other than saying that everything that we do needs to be accessible. That means both the platform and the content that's hosted on the platform as people create these content. And that's what the scripts or the bots are able to facilitate in order to make as much stuff as accessible as possible using a computer, which is not everything, but it's a lot that we have here. In order to facilitate better accessibility, we've also implemented a real-time accessibility checker into the editor of our library. So when you actually write content in our libraries, you can do a check in order to be able to identify the top 10 biggest issues for accessibility that we've identified that's out there. For example, identifying if headers are handled appropriately and such. And again, you'll be seeing this when we work with it later on this week. Okay, so I just want to mention the Jupyter Hub infrastructure. That infrastructure provides us with the ability of executable code that we can then embed into our book. So you can think of it as making our book more engaging. The more engaging it is, the more likely students are going to interact with it. The more likely they're going to interact with it, the more likely they're going to learn. So engagement is a theme behind how we actually build what I refer to as the textbook of the future. This is an example in my introductory quantum mechanics book where I've introduced Python into my book. Students can see the code for the Python. They can interact with the widgets. They can come in and manipulate it and see the effect that's out there. This is because STEM students should be exposed to some level, at least physical STEM students should be exposed to some level of structured languages. Because we are a community project, it means that we can capitalize on what other people have created. This was a project or a tweet that was generated 4 years ago showing a distillation. Once we found it, I was able to grab it, implement it, and then within the next day, my students were able to use this in the classroom when we were talking about distillation. This is an example of capitalizing on the community and moving forward, and it's a constant theme behind OER in general, not just the LibreText project. The Commons and Conductor. So the Commons and Conductor is a very peculiar name for the technology. You've already been exposed to it before. The Commons is the cataloging system. That's the front end that you can access without an account. The Conductor is the back end that requires an account in order to be able to address that. So again, it's a two-faced approach, hence the name Commons and Conductor. The Commons, again, provides a cataloging system for finding books, finding libraries, collections, homework, assets, identifying projects that are under development at your campus or at other campuses. That helps to facilitate moving forward with your project. We have two flavors. One is our Central Commons, which we used to call the Libre Commons. That right there you can access at commons.libretext.org. We have a second flavor, so any member of our LibreNet gets a campus commons that's branded for their own specific instance so that their stakeholders can see the resources that are adopted on their campus. Those stakeholders may be students and maybe faculty, maybe administrators, and maybe external sponsors and such. The backend cataloging is a project management tool. In fact, it's the only OER dedicated project management tool to my knowledge. It's meant in order to facilitate the construction of resources, although it can be used for a range of other things. For example, we have a conductor page for this workshop or this conference that you can go in and access, and we use it for facilitating communication. This is a powerful project management tool. In fact, you can't generate a textbook on our platform without first generating a conductor page behind that. It facilitates alerts. So if you want to put an alert for a specific keyword like calculus or chemistry, when new resources come into our platform, you'll then get notified of that in order to be able to make sure that you're up to date on what resources you can capitalize on for your specific needs. You can submit harvest requests, which is the term that we use for integrating existing material outside of our platform into our platform, facilitates adoption requests, actually adoption reports, and facilitating who's using your resources, facilitates reviews, whether they're peers or from students, facilitates communication both intra-team and against between different teams, and allows you to see the progress in other projects that are publicly available. That's out there. It's exceedingly powerful. This right here is the front end for the Prince George Community College, Brandon Commons. This right here is for Kansas State University. Very purple because that's the accent color that they are using. The back end looks something like this. This right here is an older snapshot of the conductor page, but you've already seen the conductor page because you had to access it for all the conversations that we've been having in the threads the last day. Nova. So Nova is not formally released, but it's worthwhile in order to address. If anyone needs an account on that, please let us know. The Nova is meant as a standalone mini LibreVerse in the sense that you can actually load Nova on your own platform, your own server, and load up books into it outside of the centralized infrastructure that we have in the LibreVerse. But it also acts as our course catalog. So you can generate a course consisting of books and homework and other materials all centralized. You can think of it like Canvas Commons that you're able to download, but we desire to pursue a LMS agnostic approach because LMSs have come and LMSs have gone.
Keep going.
And we want to be able to facilitate an agnostic approach for doing that. So that right there will be released soon. We're going to be using this for our professional development series as part of the LibreText Academy, which we'll be talking about later on this conference. Studio. So your Libre One account gives you access to the Studio. The Studio is our repository and construction platform for H5P assessments and interactives. And you have access right now. Again, getting back to the engagement aspect, you can make your book engaging and interactive using these resources that the H5P provides you. And we'll discuss a little bit about how to create H5P tomorrow, not today, because it folds into the ADAPT homework system. So you can actually use it as one of 4 technologies in order to pursue your homework infrastructure and homework needs that are out there. I encourage you to take a look at that, and it's exceedingly powerful. There are certain caveats and issues associated with H5P that you should be aware of, and we'll be talking about that momentarily, but it's a free resource for you to tap into and use and make more engaging textbook material. Adapt. Now, I'm not going to go through all the aspects of Adapt because I only have a handful of minutes here, but I just want to talk about some of the key components of Adapt. So Adapt is a homework platform / question bank that we felt was critical in order to be able to extricate the commercial interest from the classroom, because it's the homework system that's really tying faculty into commercial products, because many fields have viable OER textbooks that people can adopt or to build upon. There's still lots and lots of development by that, by the way. So we wanted to be able to build a homework system in order to accompany this. And we knew that we wanted to do this a long time ago, but it took 10 years for us to be able to do that. Part of it is because we needed some funds in order to advance that, but thanks to the U.S. Department of Education and also thanks to the state of California, we had a sizable amount of investment in terms of building this system. We wanted to build something that was flexible, dynamic, comprehensive, integratable, LMS agnostic, powerful, and free or nearly free. And it turns out doing something like this with all these criteria turns out to be pretty difficult. And we bit off a lot more than we thought that we thought it was going to be before we started with this project. And the answer in order to do something like that is to do it slowly and efficiently. And we're very excited that after 16 years, the homework infrastructure to the LibreVerse is available for you. It's available for your students in order to capitalize and move forward with it. There's still a lot of development that we need to do from technology and a lot of question development in order to be able to advance our goals, but the infrastructure is there for you to be able to provide that. Central to this is not to reinvent the wheel, to capitalize on the open source technologies that are available that's out there. So this is what the front end of Adapt looks like right now. Again, you can access it in your Launchpad. If you haven't created an instructor account, you can always email us again at info@libretext.org, or you can click on this button right here, and that will also get to us. And such. So Adapt has a lot of facets. It takes a bit of time in order to address it. You'll be able to master the basic principles of it from today and tomorrow, but there are many other aspects that are beyond what we're able to address in the short time frame that we have, even during this week-long conference. Key point for Adapt is that no one technology is used in order to address all our assessment needs. The reason for that is that there is no one technology that's able to handle all our needs. The technology meant for economics is different than the technology for Spanish or the technology for chemistry or the technology for coding. So what we did is we built an infrastructure that acts as an umbrella that you add different technologies into it in order to be able to advance on that. The four principal technologies that we have are web work, iMathAS, which is the technology underlying MyOpenMath or Lumen Learning's own system. The latter is a commercial product. H5P that I mentioned before within the studio conversation, and native, which is our term for technologies that we built into Adapt directly. And that includes things like QTI, which is question and test interoperability. That's the protocol underlying most learning management systems question bank. So if you have a question bank in any of these platforms, whether it's in Canvas Commons or Canvas Course, WebWork, iMathAS, or H5P, we can bring it together into our infrastructure, and you as faculty can use and interchange one question type from another question type into your courses without worrying about the details behind how those questions operate and the details associated with how you build those questions, because that's a different aspect than using those questions. We also have the ability in order to have open-ended questions so that you can grade, or you can have a TA or a grader review questions manually in order to be able to update. We built an infrastructure called the Open Grader, which facilitates rapid grading of the content. Students can upload text, they can upload files like PDFs or Excel. They can also upload audio files, or more specifically, record audio files online. That's useful for second languages, that's useful for music or other aspects. And I'll be talking about other technologies that are part of native that's there. Students can access Adapt directly via the Adapt website. You can embed into your book your questions, whether they're formative or summative. So your book then can become a homework system, again, increasing the engagement with the material in order to facilitate greater learning. We will be releasing in a month our in-class personal response system, basically our clicker, our phone system, so students can actually solve problems on their phone using the native technology that they prefer. That can substitute as an in-class polling system, for example, iClicker, which is oftentimes as expensive as a commercial homework package for some reason or another. That's available for you right now in order to make things more affordable. And irrespective of how students engage with the material, you can pass back scores to your learning management system via LTI or an LTI modified by other systems. This is a snapshot of our phone app. Again, that will be available very soon. It's useful because when we actually expand on it later on this summer, you'll be able to capitalize on the phone, and you can use the phone in order to take pictures and upload those pictures as part of the homework infrastructure. So I just have a few more minutes left before Christina comes on board and talks about Spanish. I just want to mention where the name Adapt comes from. So we could provide questions traditionally to students via a conventional manner where we have assignments. Assignments have questions. Questions are open and closed at specific times and dates, and students solve them and they go through it. Very similar to how essentially every learning management system does it. We can also provide questions in the terms of learning trees. In that case there, instead of having a single question, instead of having a single question right here, we can have a question with a series of remediation nodes in order to help address the skills necessary to master that question. That's called a learning tree. And the intent of that is that this provides an adaptive interface for students in order to engage with material and learn better. And there are lots of evidence that this is a superior approach to traditional questions. However, the issue is that this takes a lot of effort in order to create these learning trees, which we're working on actively. We will be releasing later on this month our learning analytics infrastructure. That's part of ADAPT, which gives us the ability in order to identify how students are interacting specifically or collectively with the resources. It'll provide this opportunity in order to find out how students are, how much time they're spending doing their problems, how much time they're spending reviewing those problems afterwards. It'll provide us an infrastructure for recognizing if our learning objectives are satisfied. It will have an early warning system to identify students that are at risk for failure based off of their performance in the class so far. This couples in ADAPT, but it also couples in performance or interactions with the textbooks. And you can combine the two of them for an enhanced data stream that's out there. Lastly, is our support center. We just released this a few months ago. It provides an opportunity in order to contact us and submit requests and tickets and facilitates better communication around those tickets. I encourage you that you want to get a hold of us in terms of issues or problems that you have in order to use the support center rather than emails, because the support centers make it easier for the team in order to work collectively. We also have an infrastructure that we call Insight. In Insight, gives us access to a think of it past questions and past question solutions, so you can actually do a search in order to find various aspects out here. It's still being fleshed out, but there are lots of answers for questions that many people have that we encourage people when they submit a report to check the Insight, do a search through Insight in order to see if a question has already been addressed. With that, I'll end with what I began with, which is our LibreText mission. We're implementing a community-built platform for the construction, curation, adoption, and adaption of OER that's comprehensive and can be curated at multiple levels. We're very excited with what we've been doing in the last 16 years. We hope that you share our excitement. And if you haven't been excited so far, hopefully by the end of this conference, you'll be excited. That's out there. I'd just like to thank the sources of the funds that were important in order to make sure that we were generating what we've generated. The U.S. Department of Education, specifically the Open Textbook Pilot Award. We were the inaugural winners of that in 2018, and we received two grants from the National Science Foundation, and the California Education and Learning Lab funded the development of ADAPT, and the UC Davis has supported me through this endeavor quite extensively, and should be rethanked. So with that, I will stop.